Okay. Get back on track here. Oh. Love like mom. If that were possible. 1 Thessalonians 2. Just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you. 1 Thessalonians. I can't say that. Thessalonians. Juanita told her nephew about growing up during the Great Depression. Her poor family only had apples to eat, plus whatever wild game her dad might provide. Whenever he bagged a squirrel for dinner, her mom would say, "Give me that squirrel head. That's all I want to eat. It's the best piece of meat." Years later, Juanita realized there wasn't any meat on a squirrel's head. Her mom didn't eat it. She only pretended it was delicious. She only pretended it was a delicacy, so us kids could get more to eat, and we wouldn't worry about her. As we celebrate Mother's Day tomorrow, may we also recount stories of our mother's devotion. We thank God for them and strive to love more like them. Paul served the Thessalonian church as a nursing mother cares for her children. He loved fiercely, fighting through strong opposition to tell them about Jesus and to share his own life with them. He worked night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while he preached the gospel of God to them, just like Mom. Few can resist a mother's love, and Paul modestly said his efforts were not without results. We can't control how others respond, but we can choose to show up day after day to serve them in a sacrificial way. Mom would be proud, and so will our Heavenly Father. That's a good one. Who has loved you sacrificially? Who are you loving as your Heavenly Father loves you? Father, no one could love me more than you. That's something I can think of. I don't know if this would be considered sacrificial, but there was a time. But you got to look at the whole picture. But I remember me and my sister we always had clean, current clothes. We were always fashionably dressed, growing up and going to school and all that. And we always ate like kings. But there was years where my dad, we drove the worst, nastiest, beat up cars. And it was because of money. And, but we still had everything we needed. We were never without anything. There's times that maybe couldn't do certain things or whatever, but we were always very well cared for. My parents were excellent. I had the greatest parents in the world, still today. Although we argued all day today, but we have great parents. Now some will say, well, that was, he made great sacrifice, drove the old car, but yet you and your sister were taken care of. And that's true. But typically money was tight because my dad, I guess my dad was always building his empire. He would, if a piece of land was for sale, not any piece of land, but he was about buying land. My dad has always been land rich, cash poor. He made a remark today. I saw 93 acres over there. It's kind of close to our property. I said, well, it doesn't matter because you're not touching it. I flat told him, he's 70-something years old. And, I said, you're still chasing mortgage. He's not happy unless he has a mortgage on his back. Now, he has a lot of paid for property. My parents make their money in rentals. They have a lot of paid off rental property, and they're getting rent. They get their rent from that. That's their retirement, although they're not retired. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you looked at us growing up, we're always very well taken care of. And but I think as far, I don't know if it would be sacrificial, but the most of the time money was tight for us because Dad was out buying something. And we benefit from it now, but it was like, it's like, oh my God. I'll tell you this, and this is, people say, oh, that's kind of far fetched or whatever. My dad bought 28 acres and built a small golf course and driving range, okay, with no money. With no money. He drove a 67 Chevy El Camino, and it was odd the way he drove it because it only had low gear. And but I mean, he had no money. He bought 28 acres, gave the guy what he was asking for the property, which the property might have been worth at the time, you know, maybe $400,000. The guy was asking $500,000 for it, and it was just alfalfa. But the guy liked my dad. He was a very wealthy man, and if it wasn't for him, this never would have happened. This guy really liked my dad. And my dad said, I have this dream. I want to do this on this property. This is what it'll take. But I really can't, I can't start paying you anything until such and such time, whatever. They did like a lease purchase thing or whatever. And this guy saw the same vision my dad had. And even when the guy says, okay, start paying me at this point. Am I at that point? My dad still couldn't pay me. Still had no money. And the guy he liked the fact that my dad was such a hard worker. And if it wasn't for that man, we never could have done it. But just when I tell people that, they say, well, what'd you guys do to get, we had no money. We had no chunk of money, no capital whatsoever. We had a house, a little track home, and another, we had a driving range on land that we did not own. We leased it. But it literally, so if someone says, well, that's when people say, oh, you can't do anything now, or things are this, or things are that, or I can't, you got to have all this money to make money, or, those kind of deals. If my, how would you put it? It was my dad's, I don't want to say character, but let's say characteristics. People always like my dad. They'll let him people let my dad get away with anything. But you ever know he's a hard worker, always still is, as crippled up as he is. But it was, when I see people say, well, we can't do those things, or we can't afford a house today, or we can't do that. And that's true. I understand it's different now. Things are so much more expensive, whatever. But then I look at the things my dad did, and that's just not true. You could have nothing and do all kinds of stuff. But most people just don't have that in their makeup. They don't have, it's not, the worst thing you tell my dad is no. But he bought more property with his mouth, his words, than he ever did with money. But my dad could never have passed a credit check or anything like that. Not even close. But he would go and work around real estate agents and get this real estate agent. We don't need him. We'll work this out ourselves. And he'd go down and make a deal, and people would say, okay, let's do it. He still does it to this day. But I saw my dad do a big thing with no money. But he had the ability, he had a vision, a dream, and then the wherewithal and the desire to build it. And he did all that. So when someone says, well, but my dad's the exception in that regard. Yeah, so people come to me, like people saying, well, I don't have the stuff it takes to do all that. Well, it's really not the stuff, it's really you. You don't have, chances are if we had the money, it wouldn't change anything. I don't mean to be mean, but it's just some people are made to do certain things and others aren't. Anyhow, I'm rambling on. You can build something with nothing. And my poor mother. Oh, shoot. Love you. God bless.